Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to add a couple of mixed numbers together. We have 5 and 3/4, and we're trying to add 2 and 4/5. Now, one of the good things about adding mixed numbers is that we can treat the whole numbers and the fractions independently. In other words, we can just operate with the 5 and the 2, and then we can just operate with the 3/4 and the 4/5. So if we were to rewrite it, we could almost look at it like 5 and 3/4 plus 2 and 4/5. And we can add it like this. Now, before we can continue here, we must note that anytime we're trying to add anything that has to do with fractions, we have to establish a common denominator. In other words, the 4 and the 5 have these two fractions, because they have two different denominators, they have to be renamed as fractions with the same denominator. So we've got a number of ways that we can do this, and one of the ways that we can do this is by using what's called the least common multiple. So if I start with 4 and I begin listing multiples, I'm looking for the number that 4 and 5 have in common. That's the smallest number that they both have in common. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 6 is 24, and so on and so on. Now, the good thing about working with 5 is that when we multiply 5 times any other numbers, it's either going to end in 5 or in 0. So I think that probably 20 is going to be our best bet, but let's make sure. So we got 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, and 5 times 4, and there it is right there. So 20 is the smallest number that both 4 and 5 have in common. So I need to rewrite these two fractions with denominators of 20. So 5 and 3/4 is going to become 5 and some fraction with a denominator of 20, and 2 and 4/5 is going to become 2 and some fraction with a denominator of 20. Now, we're renaming the fractions, we're not changing the values. So if I know how to go from 4 to 20, then whatever I did to go to 4, from 4 to 20, I need to do the same thing to the numerator. Well, I know that if I multiply 5 times 4, it gives me that 20. And whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So if I multiplied 4 times 5, I have to multiply the numerator of 3 times 5. So 3 times 5 is going to give me 15. Same thing down here. 5 times 4 gives me 20. Whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do the numerator. So 4 times 4 gives me 16. And now that these two fractions have the same denominator, I can go ahead and add them together. So when I add 15/20 to 16/20, I get 31/20. And when I add 5 plus 2, I get 7. Now, we're not done yet, because this right here is an improper fraction. When the numerator is larger than the denominator, that's what we call an improper fraction. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to say 7 and 31/20. This number up here has to be less than 20, so we need to make it less than 20. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to turn this into a mixed number. And the way we do that is we put the numerator in, 31, and the denominator out, 20. I know that 20 will go into 31 one time, and then I subtract. 31 minus 20 is 11. So now my new number is 1 and 11/20. So 31/20 became 1 and 11/20, but we're not done just yet, because remember, the only thing we did was change this. Okay, we haven't taken into account this 7 yet. So the last step is fairly simple, because now all I have to do is take this 7, this whole number 7, and add it to the whole number 1. So when I add 7 plus 1 and 11/20, I get 8 and 11/20. And that is my answer.